Mark, what's going on, man?
Not too much. How are you?
Man, thank you so much, first and foremost, for taking the time today. This has been a little while in the
Yeah,
making, and I appreciate your
it is.
patience.
Hey, no problem. Thank you, Eric. It's very, very kind of you to want to take your time to spend it with me
Oh, man.
this Sunday afternoon. So,
Hey, I've got to say, so, I obviously, through the years with Limp Wrist, you have Deathsquad, you have Hail Mary, Under Attack comes around, and that was kind of like my resurgence of like, oh man, like this guy, thank God, is still like slapping some stuff out there and doing some stuff. So, that was kind of my angle, with today that I wanted to go about as far as digging into, Under Attack coming about. And then, the sickest thing is then in this conversation of us talking, you have something else that's new that's
yeah,
going to be, coming
yeah.
out as well. So, being able to dig into that too. So
Oh,
yeah, I
that's
had to say
awesome.
thank you very much, man, because this is awesome. And, I appreciate the time. You're a busy dude. You got a lot going on.
Well, I appreciate your time too. You're also a busy guy. You have a lot going on as well.
So as far as, just kind of, digging back and, developing your own interests, it's within, we have songs, we have bands, we have, albums maybe, but what was something that you remember as far as being a personal interest to you? I know you have older brothers, parents that were into
So,
different things. What, where does something come involved for you
so,
in loving?
so I've always gravitated towards music, listening to stuff, obsessing on, little parts of songs or, a song, like the complete composure of it. And it's just, yeah, I would say having older brothers, I kind of jumped the growing up listening to more like younger music and then developing your taste into getting it to stuff, more advanced stuff. So when I was probably in like maybe first or second grade, I was by that point already listening to like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin, Hendrix, just because I had brothers that were, my one brother's like 8 years older than me, so it kind of like, you know, broadens your musical tastes, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So
and I have the same thing. My one brother is 11 years older, and my other brother is 9 years older. And at like a young age, even before my parents were cool with me hearing
yeah,
certain things like Slayer and Pantera and different things playing. I was like, oh man, what is that? And it's funny that you mentioned that too, because it was like at the time of me being the age that I was, like my friends weren't necessarily into that stuff. It was whatever that was cool at the time. And then, I'm mentioning like thrash bands and they're like, what is
yeah.
that? Nobody's listening to
Yeah, that's yeah.
that.
So basically, having an older sibling can kind of like jump you ahead, and like because there's
Totally.
that little like that level that of musical taste that you follow where you'll like stuff as it's exposed to you,
Mhm.
and you can
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
skip ahead that way.
Now, I know that you've mentioned, in an interview talking about, not wanting to fall into, maybe liking all the stuff that your parents like. When you're a little bit younger, you don't want to fall into, like, oh man, I got to be cooler than this. I can't like this. But where was like a common ground as far as,
So
like
so
personal interests?
so my mother and I would say musically probably have maybe a little bit of classical music.
Okay. Okay.
But when I was like a senior in high school, my father was really into blues and underground blues, and he would
Okay.
go. There was like a pub that would have like stuff like Pine Top Perkins or Big Daddy Kinsley, and he would get me to go to these shows with him. And for me, it was like, oh, I can go to this bar and I can drink with my dad, and so yeah, this is cool. But it was the stuff was really good because it was also underground music, but like instead of like punk or hardcore or thrash or metal, it was blues, but it was still it had that raw energy that underground music is like thrives on. So I would say with my father maybe a little bit more of a common ground, but that being said, a lot of the stuff he was into I wasn't really.
Okay. Now, as far as like within, blues players, did that ever kind of become involved in your playing once you were picking up guitar?
Uh, yes and no. Like I like the elements that are in blues stuff. I feel like that like blues rock element is a really great thing to try to blend into punk and hardcore or even metal. But as far as like me playing like stuff like that, that probably goes beyond my skill set of rocking like a blues lead or something, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
But
it's funny too, because you know, that kind of goes along with punk. I feel like sometimes where maybe as a listener or as a viewer you see and it's like, oh, you know, maybe certain aspects of this don't seem too tough, but then you go to play it and it's like, well, what are they doing?
Yeah, totally. Because, you know, like I said, that raw energy of, you know, underground music and people are just playing from their heart and just playing like, you know, it's
awesome.
There's a big difference going to like a small club and seeing a band that's, you know, they're not playing for the money, they're playing for the passion of it.
Yeah, totally.
And
now,
I mean, some of those players would just like, you know, would blow your mind. Just like the little leads, the little things that they would do is just, you know, incredible stuff.
It's still too, you know, there's different times. I guess it's more so come back, you know, post like COVID and everything, but with like open mic nights or with different things like that, where, you know, you go and you know, hop into a bar or you hop into a small spot on a weekend and you have somebody that's up there and it's like, man, you know, you go and talk to them like, how are you not touring or how are you not, you know, it's not the interest, you know, I'm just up here to have a good time and maybe a couple free drinks and hang out. It's awesome. Now, as far as, you know, you coming up and with, you know, you've mentioned local record shops like Strawberries and Music Shack, World Records. Within these spots, you know, bring us back to a time maybe picking up a record or a tape or something from, you know, based off of cover art, or maybe you bought something and then were reading the liner notes and had to go back and pick something else up. What comes to mind from events like this?
So a lot of stuff that I would do is, because I mean, you're figuring this is like the mid 80s at this point. So say I stumbled across something that I like, and I had this conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and we were talking about how, you know, flyers have always been like, you know, like you know, a cherished like art, but you know, in the 80s, all that stuff was just cut and paste, you know, because there were no tools to do all this, like, you know, that stuff has gotten a lot easier to do layouts now. So someone would take the time to create this, like, basically this artwork, and then, you know, you would like see these flyers, they'd be plastered up everywhere, and you just sort of like, you know, look at it, check it out, see band names, you know, look at like, this band, they're on this record label, what other stuff is on this record label. And I mean, you couldn't go on the internet. You literally have to go into record stores and flip through records, looking at labels, looking at band names, reading thanks lists too. Like if you got a record and we're like, oh man, this band is so killer, I'm so into this, I'd flip it over, I'd read their thanks list, see what other bands they might have thanked, and then like, well, I got to check these guys out too, you know, because it's like, that was basically your only resource that you had, you know. And fortunately, there were so many good record shops back then too. The internet, where it's made it easier to search for stuff, it's also made it harder for, you know, physical stores to, you know, stay open. So
yeah, for sure. And that is, you know, kind of one of those things where it's like, there's the good parts of that, but then also, I mean, luckily, I don't know how it is, you know, like in your area currently, but we still have a couple of record shops that pop up that actually, you know, aren't just like the, you know, latest reissue of AC/DC or, you know, like kind of like resurgence of stuff, which that's cool. But, you know, as far as like walking in and actually, you know, having something in maybe like a staff picks that's like, holy shit, you know, where did you guys even get this 7-inch of, you know, such and such? So yeah, I mean, you gotta love that. You're like currently like Richmond area, right?
And so Vinyl Conflict,
okay.
One of the probably arguably one of the best, if not the best shop on the East Coast. So it's like
no complaints that way.
You know what I mean? So it's like and there's a bunch of other good shops too here, you know. But I would say Vinyl Conflict hands down the best shop in Richmond. You know,
Conflict, and a sick name. Jeez,
yeah.
You walk by that shop and you're not enthralled and by, you know, you're in heavy music and you're not drawn in by that. That's unfortunate.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
awesome. Now, as far as like your local music scene, now this can even be before, you know, hardcore or anything heavy. I know that you were kind of introduced early on through your brothers and with live music, but where, you know, do you come to be introduced to your local music scene?
So I had there was a kid I played hockey with when I was like in 6th grade, and his brother played in this new wave band, and they did a Sex Pistols cover. So
oh shit,
I would say that was probably really the first time. And that being said, I had just that summer gone on vacation with my mother and my brother and my aunt. We went to London. So, you know, we saw all these like punk rock, because this has got to be about 83 maybe. Okay. So there was just punk rock dudes everywhere. And then I come back, my brother's, my friend's older brother is listening to the Sex Pistols. And then we started listening to it and we were like, man, this is incredible. This is like, I've never heard anything like this. So, you know, that led to like, you know, trying to find others. I think from there maybe found like the Clash, you know, the more like the more punk stuff that was mainstream, that wasn't really that underground, but kind of led you down that path, you know? Okay.
Yeah. Now, was there ever a point as far as with some of that stuff with like tape trading? Was that something that you kind of dove into?
And that was the thing too, as I started to get more into like, you know, more underground punk and more underground hardcore, that was like, I mean, that was such a thing. People would be like, oh, you'd get this like 10th generation dub tape that would like cut out in parts of songs, or, you know, it would just be the quality like was just such garbage, but you were like, oh man, I got this thing, is so sick. And you were just like, you'd be so excited to have like the crappiest version of something because you didn't know any better. You didn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, I can just, I'll just go online and get a different file. It was like, oh my God, I scored this, you know? So it's, you know,
it's even funny to like, go ahead.
I was going to say that's like such a lost art, like tape trading and just like, you know, like just pen pals and just writing actual letters to people, you know, writing someone, sending a tape through the mail and waiting like maybe a week or 2 weeks before you even got any kind of reply or like a tape sent back to you. And it was just like, it felt like, it was like eternity, you know? You were like, oh my God, I can't wait. I wonder what I'm going to get. And it's just like,
that's awesome.
What were you about to say?
I was just going to mention as far as like, you know, I think for like newer, you know, generation, or like maybe even like, you know, a little bit, you know, younger as far as cats that would go and, you know, try to get like a download of something offline, and you wouldn't even really necessarily care if it was something like it might be choppy or like a really broken, you know, like production of it. It's like, oh, I finally got it. You know, like I never had like a computer or anything growing up, but I had friends who had that, and they would have, you know, just hard drives of like anything that I'd been trying to score for, it felt like my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, where did you get this? It's like, oh, I can burn you a copy. Like, I've been listening to it for years. All right, dude. I mean, cool. Can I have one?
Yeah.
Now, as far as like these interests and you know, that transition into actually playing, where did was guitar the first instrument that you ended up playing, or did you do anything in band prior?
No, the first band I did, I sang, and it was like, this was in the late 80s. Okay. And it was this band called Drawback. It was my very first hardcore band. Okay. And so I actually, a couple of years ago, found the demo that we had. Man. But by demo, it was basically like the best versions that we recorded of songs that we would practice in this basement. And we would record it on a boombox, and we'd be like, oh, that's the one. That's a good take. So we just, so I mean, I listen to it now. It's like, oh my God, this is terrible. But at the time, we were like, this is the coolest thing. Oh my God, I can't believe we made it. We made a, you know, we recorded we have a demo. It's just like, it's awesome. You know, But
no, I mean, was there like an adapter for like a microphone and everything, or was this just the
no,
straight
it was
up
just
like?
literally like, so and actually even crazier. So you remember, do you ever remember they had those like cassette recorders?
Oh
And
yeah,
it had like the
yeah.
one speaker. It was like kind of like a
Right.
rectangle,
Tangle.
and
Yep.
you would just throw maybe a piece of like a shirt or a piece of fabric over it, and then just hit record and just like try to position. Oh, where's the best spot? Where should we set this in this room to get the best possible recording? So it's like, there was no like, room mic or not. It was just literally like, a cassette recorder that you would have like that we had. I think one of us lifted it from our like our middle school or something, or high school. So
Yeah. I remember having times of like finding a shoestring and like tying it to a pipe, in the ceiling or something, or just any way of like trying to get a different angle of like, by somehow this is actually going to sound good.
And like,
it was just like the journey with your friends.
Yeah, and like, oh, you know what? I got a great idea. This will sound so sick, And it's like the whole mentality of like and the thing was just the excitement of like actually like doing it, feeling like, oh wow, we're doing this band, we got this stuff, we're recording it, and it's just, we were just, people now, like you can take your iPhone and record stuff now, and it's like, it sounds pretty killer.
Yeah,
and it's pretty crazy when you think about how like, like technology has like come so far.
With even with different things like on GarageBand, it's kind of funny if you talk to somebody who actually does production, but you have like applications like that where it's right on your phone and somebody will show you something and it's like, man, this sounds great. Like, how did you do this? I didn't know that you had a studio. And it's like, oh, it's just on GarageBand.
That's so crazy,
Like,
yeah.
How?
Yeah, that's the thing is it's like so crazy that like the way stuff can be done now. It's just like, holy cow,
Yeah, right. Now within you and taking on vocals, what were maybe some things that you were practicing with that you were kind of finding your own voice? How did that come about as far as like taking that
on? So the first band I did, I sang. And that was because like I really couldn't play anything. My parents had bought me a guitar when I was like, I want to say I was in 8th grade. They bought me a guitar, but I never really took lessons or anything. I never really played it, which ironically, which I actually still had. I still have that guitar too. But
oh man, that's awesome.
That's why I was like, I should sing, because that'd be the easiest thing to do.
Okay.
So I just sort of sang because, I thought like, oh, that's, that's the best thing to do.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say just my influences just in general were, people just, screaming their heads off, being pissed, being like, aggro,
Yeah. Was there certain like when you're initially, kind of mentioning getting into it, were there certain maybe even like tapes or records that you would have that you were kind of practicing with?
I would say probably like, Agnostic Front, Life's Blood, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Really like, because I grew up like in the suburbs of Albany. So Albany was kind of like one of the hubs for like New York hardcore. We had, there was like Dave Stein and Steve Reddy lived in that area, and they would put shows on, and, basically like every one of those bands would come and play in Albany. So,
being able to check them out.
And so like the first show I actually played was my band played what actually I think it was the one and only show that Drawback played. We played with like Token Entry when they were still good.
We'll leave that there. We won't put it up for debate. But okay, dang, let's say. So that was only like a one show deal. Now from there, did you end up taking on guitar, or was there you know, like other.
So what happened was a few years after that, like, you know, probably around 90, I left for college. And I want to say it was like around 91 or 92. I crossed paths with Jason O'Toole, the Lifeblood singer.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I did an interview with him for a zine that I used to do called Trial by Error.
Yeah, okay.
And he had mentioned to me, hey, you know, do you play guitar? I'm trying to get Lifeblood back together and I need someone to play guitar. So me not playing guitar, of course I said, oh yeah, I play guitar. so my friend Jim, who had played guitar and drawback, I was like, so I was smart enough to say to Jason, yeah, you know, tell me 4 songs that you'd want to start playing so I can learn them. So he like Youth and Rage, I think like Human Power, and like maybe 2 other songs. And he was like, yeah, you know, we'll learn these songs and then we'll practice. So I said to and at this point I really had no idea how to play guitar, didn't really play guitar, but had my friend Jim, I was like, hey, can you teach me these songs? So he literally taught me these 4 Lifeblood songs and I just would play them over and over. So basically me learning how to play guitar was playing these 4 Lifeblood songs, which I would say that's definitely probably what influenced my playing and writing, was playing these songs, this style. And, you know, that's basically how I like developed like my probably style is mimicking these Lifeblood songs.
Dang.
So
that is that.
And
now, like,
but then the irony was, Jason, the other guys from Lifeblood were like, hey, dude, this isn't your band. You're not. So Jason was like, hey, I guess I can't really do this. How about we start a new band? So I was like, okay. So I started, and then he was like, oh, do you have any songs? Can you write some songs? So I was like, oh, sure. But so I would say that's why definitely, like, especially the early stuff I was writing was very heavily influenced by, you know, Life's Blood, and that definitely kind of molded my writing and playing style.
Now, like within those early moments of like learning and really just picking up the thing and trying to figure everything out, like, was there anything that you had to do with tuning, or, you know, any like particular, you know, memories of like, how the fuck am I going to pull this thing on? I don't know what he's doing.
I was smart enough to get a tuner.
Okay, yeah.
So problem solved on that front. And then the other thing was, you know, I was just lucky. My friend Jim was an incredible guitar player. I actually went on to play, and he was, I think I went on to play in like another 3 bands with him further on down the line. I did Conniption with him. I did, he was one of the main guitar players for a long time in Hail Mary. And then I did this other band with him that just kind of fizzled out called Piecemeal that I played bass in. It was a couple of guys from Long Island and then me and Jim from the Albany area. So it didn't really, the logistics of it were kind of just too complicated. So
yeah, okay. Now with that first guitar, was that something that, you know, after you were, you know, starting to, you know, play in a couple of bands, you're starting to get, was there anything as far as having to scrounge up some dough and upgrade, you know, a couple of things, or a new amp, or how did that come about?
So I used that. So it was the guitar. My first guitar was a Squier Telecaster, a made in Japan Squier Telecaster. Okay. And then the real first like proper guitar I got, which was shortly after, I picked up a 1969 Gibson SG. So, and I got it for like, now for like, considering what some of the vintage stuff is worth, it was like, I think it was like $300 or $350. Jeez. So, you know, and then I want to say, yeah, like, so 92, I got that. And I got my my Marshall cabinet, which is actually the same cabinet. I went and got a JCM 850 watt head, and then I got a 1960 vintage 412 Marshall, and it's the same stack. Like and I mean, I've always like I just lucked into getting the gear that really worked for me, and it was just the right fit. And I mean,
awesome.
This is what, like 31 years later, I'm still have the same cabinet that I'm playing out of. So
that's sick. God, that's great. I mean, and just kind of the luck of the draw. Like, hey, hopefully this one works out, and look at all the things you've accomplished with that same one. That's awesome. God,
yeah.
Damn.
Well, so what happened was this was when I joined Devoid of Faith, and
okay.
Nate, the guitar player from Devoid of Faith, had a Marshall JMP, and I was like, man, this thing is incredible. And I went to there was a local music store, Drome Sound. I went to get it one, and that one was, I think, like $450, and I was like, oh shit, that's too much money. And then there was this JCM 800. I was like, well, shit, here's another Marshall. This one's only $350. So yeah. I ended up with that head because it was $100 cheaper than what I actually went to get. So, and then the irony is the JCM 800 for what I wanted to do was like such a better head. So it just kind of, by luck, I just kind of gravitated to the right cabinet for me.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, and that's the thing is that sometimes even with, I guess myself playing drums, but there's different times where you'll look into snares or cymbals, and this is, exponentially more, expensive than this other thing, or just for instance, even something like, I don't know if you ever seen Wuhan, that brand of cymbals. Yeah. They have a China that those things, for whatever reason, sound a lot better than the majority of the others, and they're cheap as hell.
I also have a friend, Eric, and those are the China cymbals, the Wuhan ones that he's like, oh, they're the best. They're the
wild.
Best.
It's wild, absolutely wild. So sometimes those things work out. Not all of the time. Is money or expense something that helps us out in being a musician? But that every once in a while that works out. I love that too.
Yeah.
Within. So you kind of mentioned, like your first band and playing your first show, within that first show, like, was it something that, were you, more excited than, had nerves for? Did you have different little things as far as what went into maybe preparing yourself and centering yourself all those years ago that maybe even you still do today to ready yourself for a show?
I would say back then we were like so excited and just had no idea. I would say I had no idea what I was getting myself into or what to expect.
Okay.
But being a local band, playing a 5-band show, we probably played to like 20 people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because it was like, this band that no one had heard of. So people were like, oh man, the show starts at 7. I'll be there at like 9.
Right.
So, but I wouldn't say that like, I wasn't really nervous because it was something that I'd been wanting to do for so long, and I felt like, oh man, this is so sick. This is like my chance to finally like, play a show, because at that point, you pretty much go to shows every week, and you'd always be like, man, I wish I could play. I wish my band could play. So, finally having the opportunity to do it was just like, oh, this is so awesome.
I love it. Yeah.
I would say now, being more adept at playing now, I definitely probably have things that are more rituals, like Under Attack, when we play, we try and all do collectively a shot together before we play, just sort of like,
okay.
like, but you play with Dave Whitty, there's always going to be some kind of alcohol involved.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, like being able to talk to him and him mentioning like, and I love bringing up, the whole like kind of pre-show, like kind of just different things that, musicians do. But him mentioning it was, I think, a chocolate and a beer, and I'm just like,
yeah.
What? And it was just something that has always been, his thing. And just somebody, having like a shot before, or, I've known people who are like a shot of Jameson and a PBR is like,
yeah.
Okay.
Dave has the love of chocolate. I don't think that anyone else does, you know.
That's wild. And I always appreciate, hearing these things just out of, myself being interested. I know that there's other people out there who are also, musicians as well, and can, kind of take in some of this thing, or maybe even younger, musicians to be able to hear some of these things too. So
yeah, one of the things I'm always paranoid about whenever there's like, if it's real hot or real cold, I like to kind of get my guitar in an area where I feel like it can get like room temperature.
Oh, okay.
So that when you tune it, it doesn't have any kind of weird, like, it's not like too cold and then all of a sudden it gets warm and then you have like weird tuning issues, or if it's really hot and then gets cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things I like to get the gear loaded into where we're going to play and just like ready to go. And then, when we set up, just that way,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm not one less thing to have to worry about or think about.
Yeah. It's funny because like, over all of the things, I think as I've gotten older and over the years of playing, for whatever reason, like the anxiousness of anything comes with setting up and breaking down. Like, I hate taking a long time setting up, but I also want my shit right. Like I don't want to sit down and it's like, oh, this is so wonky. And then the whole feeling of like being done and just sitting there and, I always like having my stuff right off. Like, hey, my last note, I'm getting up and I'm tearing my shit down.
Yeah.
Just, out of respect for the next band.
Yeah. So when I pack up, I have a backpack that I keep by me.
Oh.
And I systematically, I'm like, all right, first thing I like to do is get my guitar right in the case so that I don't have to worry about it getting knocked over. And then the second thing is I pull all my cables and cords and my tuner and get them in my backpack, get that zipped up. Then take my head, put it in the head case, and then everything's ready to go off. And I know, I kind of have this like mental checklist. Okay, I've got this. I pulled the speaker cable, I pulled the power cord, pulled the guitar cord, both guitar cords, the tuner pedal, the adapter. That's all packed up. That way, because I get so paranoid, like, oh shit, I forgot this. And it's like, so I have specific chords, and so that I know, like, okay, I got this one,
Okay.
So
okay, I dig that. I don't think that's anything necessarily like I really like kind of have dug into on this as far as that, and even you mentioning that it's the same way with me, and I've just never thought of that it was really a thing. But I guess it makes sense of having like a checklist of making it a more fluid motion than as opposed to some people that I know, and it's just like havoc of some sort. Like throwing this over here and tossing this over there and getting this back. And it's like, you're more in the way right now.
Yeah, like a couple of times, because like with Under Attack, Dave uses my kit, and there were a few times we played locally and he would leave. And then we'd say that there was a band that played after us and they used our kit. A couple of different times we've lost drum parts because I don't have that mental like, oh, I got to have this. You know what I mean? We lost like a rubber foot one time. We lost like a couple of like nuts and bolts. And it's like,
so this wasn't like a cymbal or like something.
No,
I mean, not to say that it's not big stuff.
It was nothing big, but it was stuff that like someone that like you or Dave, you'd be like, oh, what do you get? I'm missing this,
Yeah.
But I don't, that's just like kind of outside of my realm. So it's like, oh shit, so, and then of course, Dave loves the chance to goof on you. So he'd be like, oh, you fucked up. You lost this rubber foot.
So, keep it entertaining, keep it fun. I love that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, where did your first opportunity come to travel out of town? You have local shows, you have different things. Every once in a while, this adds a little bit of a stress of like going out of state or going out of town, and and being kind of the odd man out. How did that come about for you?
So the first time playing out of town ever, or
yeah, yep.
So it was pretty easy because we had this band that had basically my first band. It would be my second band. First band I played guitar in, but it's Factory. And, we had the easy, like, ex-members of Life's Blood. So it was relatively easy to get shows in New York. And that band, primarily, we played like, I think, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Albany area.
Okay.
And, you know, we played in that little ring, and, you know, you have X members of, usually you can kind of
It's gotta pull.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
relatively easy.
Okay,
And then, you know,
sweet.
once you do your, once, that was a good band to like be able to break me in playing guitar, because then, you know, you, especially back then, the early 90s, it was, you know, a lot of, you know, hey, you do shows or you put records out. And I mean, I met a lot of, from when I was in Factory, made a lot of friends, people that I'm still friends with today and still talk to. Still, like when I do new music, I'll say, hey, you want to, you know, check this out, I just did this, you know. So it's like, that's the thing, that, you know, punk and hardcore and, you know, metal, it's not just music, you know. It's like a community. It's like, you know, it's like a way of life where, you know, you're making friends with people, you know, you're sharing ideas, and you know, you're like trying to be a positive influence to each other, but also, you know, you have this bond, you know, that, hey, we're part of this, you know, scene. And
You know, and it's funny too that you mentioned that, because the other night was probably, I would have to say to memory, one of the first times I remember seeing something like this. My band had a show, and it was kind of like a mixed bill. There was some punk, there was some, you know, death metal bands, you know. Among this, though, you know, every once in a while you have the instances where something that's heavy metal and something that's punk, you know, they clash, and they don't really understand, you know, the difference between moshing and hardcore dancing. And obviously that's a little bit more relevant nowadays. But two cats started getting into it, and people are, you know, like pulling apart, like, yo, don't fuck this up. Like, this is awesome. Don't ruin it. And they came to like shaking hands. And I was like, holy shit. You know, like, pretty fucking heated, pretty pissed off, you know, probably some drinks involved or whatever. And they straight up went to shaking hands and like, hey, man, you know, my band. I was just like, oh, shit. Like, that's not something
awesome.
I see all that often. And great, you know, like, I love it.
Yes.
But so, you know, for just as far as the constant evolution, you know, mentioning as far as being able to travel so far from home and still feel like you have a best buddy, you know, maybe across the country that, you know, is just that common ground of hardcore or punk or, you know, that aggressive music. Like, it's a beautiful thing, man. It's awesome. And getting to be able to meet you here, you know, and talk music too. Like, same deal. It's fucking rad, dude. Now, so my difficulty with this was I was trying to think of how to dig into your bands. You have just XYZ. There's just, you know, acts that I could have started with, but I wanted to go a little bit more recent, because you have a new band that, you know, is still kind of under wraps, and then you have Under Attack, which is absolutely just a beater. You know what I'm saying? Just absolutely rad. You know, the 3-1G release here, the Under Attack, you had the two splits right after the demo. Where does this band initially? It's my understanding something of a party, but where does this band come about?
So basically, I kind of stopped playing music for like a long time. You know, just I'd lost interest. Well, it wasn't that I lost interest in playing music. I did a band, and it was becoming more of a gimmick than what it was. You know, what it was. It was supposed to be a more purposeful thing, and it had just become kind of a gimmick. And, you know, I just kind of wasn't into it. And I bumped into Dave at a party, and Dave, you know, was basically like, hey, so, you know, I think Dave said to me, hey, when did you move here? And I was like, 03. And he's like, are you shitting me? I had no idea you were here. He's like, are you playing music? And I was like, nah, I'm just working, you know. And honestly, you know, bumping into Dave, I think, was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because, I mean, he's just he's a great dude, you know. Right off the bat, he and I played together. We just had chemistry with each other. It was a lot of fun. And, you know, we tried jamming with a few people, and nothing felt right until, you know, we had Jason and Alex, and everything just fell into place. And then, you know, the band just kind of ran with everything. And
now, it's my understanding too that it was a little while, you know, you were kind of mentioning too before anything kind of came about within, you know, that first time that you guys got together and started writing some stuff, what, you know, did you write all of that first demo, or was there just a couple of songs
Yeah,
that
so
ended up coming out
so
of
what
that?
I would do is I would send Dave voice memos from my iPhone, these like skeleton, these like just like riffs, and then Dave would listen to it and be like, oh, that's cool, but try this part or try something different here. So we'd be like texting back and forth, and we'd send each other song, or I'd send him these like riffs, and then we jam. Like I'm lucky enough I have a basement in my house and I have a full setup.
Oh,
So we would just,
oh
he'd come
shit,
here
that's awesome.
and we just jam here. Cause you know, you figure, you know, he's got his main kit is, you know, we're at Waste practice space. So it's like, it just makes it a lot easier to have, you know, cause like Jason plays in suppression. He's got a practice space for suppression. So it's just a lot easier to have gear that people can just show up, you know, have a fun time jamming. It's not stressful like, oh shit, I got to move this drum set. I got to bring it in. I got to bring it out. Everything's just ready to go. And it's, you know, just makes it a lot easier and a lot more fun.
Sick.
And
that's awesome.
So that was the thing is, you know, as Dave and I were jamming the song, it would be just me and Dave jamming, and we'd be like, this is great. And then we tried jamming with a few other people, and it just was like the vibe wasn't right. And then, you know, when we jammed with Jason and Alex, everything was like, oh man, this is, you know, it had the same like feeling of the two of us, but now with a full band.
Yeah. Within those like early, you know, like skeletons that you were sending, like, did you have some like MIDI drums that were over as far as like an idea of what you were thinking, or was this just strictly the riffs?
So that's the thing is like Dave actually kind of has a different style of almost anyone that I've played with. And sometimes what I would hear wouldn't be what he would play, which is what I thought worked so awesome in Under Attack.
Oh, okay.
Because he, you know, what he would be hearing wouldn't necessarily be what I was hearing.
Oh, okay.
So he would bring a whole nother element to stuff that I would play. And I was like, oh man, this is really sick.
Okay.
Because
now,
I mean, he's just, you know, top class drummer, great drummer. So
yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, was it something more of like that you would be thinking like maybe a slower part or like more of a D beat, and Dave's just like, nah, this is going to be fast and this is going to be in your face?
Probably. Yes. Yes. And I mean, Dave's like the master of the blast too. So it's like
it's insane.
Because I mean, you listen to the Under Attack demo, and then you listen to the next thing that was recorded was the C and Red split. And you listen, listen to the C and Red split, and you listen to the demo, and you hear all of a sudden it's just like breakneck speed. And that was like, I think it was Alex who was like, hey, we play with Dave Whitty. What about writing something really fast?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
So
why not? Shit. We got the guy here that's going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I mean, as far as, you know, seeing everybody playing, you know, but you know, my draw in with drums, just some of the videos that I've seen, or I've seen them with Municipal Waste, but how almost like slow motion it seems like he is when he's just playing like the beat, and then all of a sudden like a drum fill comes in and you don't know like where his hands went. Like, what the fuck did he just do?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really inspirational seeing that for sure.
So the funny thing about that too is like we would practice a song for like, you know, a couple weeks before we record, because when we would record, we would always like the plan with Under Attack that I felt was the best move that we would go with was, okay, because we had a bunch of releases pile up, and then, you know, I mean, Dave's a busy guy. Dave would be on the road a lot. Dave's on tour right now too, actually, with Carcass. Yes. So we would say, okay, we're going to do this 7-inch. So these are the songs for it. We're going to practice just these songs. This is the order we want the record to be in. We're going to play them in this order. And that would be that. So we would like each release, we would be like, okay, we're going to do this release. And we would just practice it that way. so that when we would record it, if when we were practicing it, we were like, I don't feel like this flows right. The song order doesn't feel right, you know? So it would just be like, you know, we would systematically approach like writing and then be like, oh, you know what, this new song, this works better before this other one. Okay. And then I feel like that helped kind of develop because you can look at each of our releases and like, oh, this one sounds different than this one. Because we were basically, they're like little like time blocks of like when Under Attack was doing stuff. Okay. And now, we actually, there's a release coming out. I think it's in May or June. It's going to be a decibel, really? 3 songs on a decibel flexi. So,
oh dang, that's sick. So I mean, is that like even now, you know, past within having, you know, a couple of releases out, is that still kind of the same process as far as you know, maybe you send in a couple of riffs and then, you know, whenever everybody's kind of in town?
Well, so the thing is Under Attack is kind of on hiatus right now because this is a really busy year for Suppression for Jason, and this is a really busy year for Dave with Waste. So we kind of are. That's why we, you know, the Decibel Flexi's coming out. We don't really have any shows booked right now. We're not really booking shows because, you know, everyone's schedule's kind of overloaded, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think it's one of those things, like as far as like me personally, and just with work and with family and different things, it almost has that different, you know, like fun aspect of being able to go out and just make a weekend out of something, or going and recording something and putting out a release. Like, yeah, maybe you're not on the road all the time. There's a lot of hardcore bands out right now. You know, somebody that comes to mind that's always been an inspiration to me, and you know how I've kind of, you know, coming to be able to play live music is Incendiary. You know, you don't ever really see them doing full runs or full different things, but the band rips and they release stuff and they're still relevant. And so you know, it's kind of one of those things where as a musician, maybe not as fun being able to like travel a bunch or whatever, but I think it still has like its place, and it's become more prominent, honestly, you know, as the years have gone on, as far as within hardcore too. So but a new release, that's sick. I can't wait. Shit.
So that one's actually called Bastard Fucking Bastard is the title of that one. So.
Sick. That's awesome. I mean, what like, how do you guys end up getting teamed up as far as with 31G when you get Preservation's Crash?
So, I mean, JP is, I mean, I've been friends with JP since probably the mid to late 90s. You know, Hail Mary played with the Locusts. You know, we did a bunch of shows with the Locusts, Jenny Piccolo, and you know, it was just, we just thought it would, and Dave and JP are good friends too. We just thought it would be neat to do a record on a label like 31G where, you know, they wouldn't necessarily put a record out like Under Attack. So
and it's ripping. I mean, it is one of those things, like when you mentioned it's a little bit different, you know, or like a little more off kilter from like the stuff that you see, but I think that's also fun, you know, like, or like something like a mixed bill, you know, when you go to a show and there's like a weird spazzy band and then a straight up, you know, hardcore and then heavy metal. Like, that shit's fun. I always love that.
I love the mixed bill shows as long as there's not like a ska band tossed in there. It's just when you lost it, because then that's when you lose me on that one, you know? Yeah, touche.
It's funny
or the
too
funk
that you
band,
mentioned
you
that.
lose me on that one,
right. Like there has to be like, it can be far enough like adjacent where it's like, okay, this is still cool. There's still energy. But you throw in a ska band, it's like, oh, well, I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
Completely.
Now, within the Preservation's Crash gets released, and you guys put out Die Already as a first single. I think from my memory it was, because the song came out, and then maybe a couple days later, or that day, later that day was the video of it. What can you tell us about that track? Absolutely.
So JP was the one that was actually like, hey, you should do a video for this release. So we talked it over, and Dave was like, yo, we should do a video, but not have any of us in it. And we were like, okay, you know, perfect.
Okay.
So originally we wanted it to be the song Preservation's Crash. But the guy that did the video said, I'm not feeling that one. This is the one I'd like to do. So we're like, all right, well, you know, he was very, very generously did the video for us. And so we were like, hey, you know what? If that's what you want to do it with, cool. And I think it worked out perfect. The video was really cool. And, you know, I think it was better that we weren't in it, you know? So,
well, I mean, it's, you know, it was definitely like something, you know, different. I feel like a lot of times you kind of see like a lyric video when it's something like that, but this just being like a full animation and a story to it was absolutely ripping. And then, you know, the song as well, that was something too where I always think it's cool as far as, you know, any release or anything I'm listening to, a drawing point is like a final track to me. Like that's where, you know, the artwork and having an awesome like final track to an album is like just the complete like chef's kiss, you know what I'm saying? And it was just cool, you know, like having that being that sick of a track, and then it ended up being like the rap on the EP there. I was like, oh, this is gonna be sick.
So the funny thing about that song is that I have a friend, Marcel, who had hit me up and he said, hey, I want to do this comp. I want to do like a 10-second song. Can you guys give me a 10-second song? And I was like, yeah, we're getting ready to record a 7-inch. We can squeeze one in. So that song was just going to be, it was just going to be 2 riffs. And then Jason wrote that killer bass line, and we were like, holy shit, that's awesome. So
awesome.
I think Alex was like, yo, why don't you play that like 8 times? And then, you know, the song like went from like 10 seconds, it became like minutes long. So we were like, well, maybe we'll just stick this on the 7-inch because I guess this won't work for a 10-second song now. So,
did you end up giving something else?
No, no, we didn't, and it never. Okay. I don't even think he ever put it out. That's the way sometimes hardcore releases go. Sometimes someone's got an idea. Oh, I want to do this killer comp, and then it never kind of
crumbles
because you've got bands that are going to do songs for it, and then they do something else with the song. So
right, something turns out even you know, more cool. But yeah, so I wanted to pick up, you know, on talking as far as Under Attack. We have talked, you know, some with the record, but as far as the original demo going, and then this bad boy coming around, where was the? Yeah, I know that there was a couple of years in there where you guys, you know, had between those rights, between the demo and then this EP here. What was the initial sit down for the EP? What came out of, you know, that session?
Well, so basically, like I had said, when we, from like the Seeing Red split on, we kind of sped up everything. You know, we decided, you know what, let's go faster. Let's play faster. Mm-hmm. Let's try and be a little more extreme in terms of like, you know, adding in some blast beats. But if there's on Preservation's Crash, there is a demo song on that as well.
Right.
And then we also, the demo, some friends of ours that played in this band Revocation recorded us in their house, and it was the very first thing they ever recorded. So by the time we got around, I want to say that's the 3rd thing for us they recorded, but at that point they'd already recorded a bunch of other stuff as well. You know, because you know, the demo, there were things like, oh wow, I guess we should have done this differently. You know, the drums on that demo sound much more like he's like almost like Dave's playing cardboard boxes at moments, you know. So those are just like the, you know, the learning curve of doing everything. Sure. But you know, they hooked us up. They were like, hey, you know, we want to try starting to record stuff. Would you be into us recording you? And it's like, it was for a demo and it was a free recording, so we were like, hell yeah,
can't
beat
it. Yeah, can't beat it. So now, okay, so was the Seeing Red split? Was that before Preservation's Crash?
Yes. Recorded before.
Yes, I didn't even realize that.
But I'm not sure when it came out because Seeing Red took forever to record. They kept having delays. and then the label that it came out on 2 labels, Auto Reverse and Way Back.
Oh,
so
okay.
So you had the communication with 2 different labels, one person taking the lead, and that took a little longer than it should have.
Oh,
but
okay.
So
I was thinking for some reason that I had come across Preservation's Crash first before that, but maybe it was just that I hadn't, seen like a physical or something. Maybe it was released.
I think that it's what it came down to is the Seeing Red split is not as easy to get your hands on.
Okay.
Because it's, 2 Dutch labels, and with the way shipping is now so outrageous, people are like, I'm not ordering that from Europe. I know Ben from Drop Dead got a number of copies through Armageddon, had them. So.
Oh, dang, that's awesome. No, I mean, as far as within going, you guys have the demo, you have Preservation's Crash, you have the 2 splits. If you had to kind of do a comp of Under Attack for a sense, as far as for somebody asking you like your favorite tracks off these, what would be a comp of your 4 favorite tracks off these releases?
I would say probably my 2 favorite releases are the 625 7-inch and the split with Male Patterns.
Oh yeah.
Like the song I Suffer is probably one of my favorite songs that we had to play, just because there's like so much to it. The mosh part in it I particularly like.
Yeah.
I like Dave's drumming. I like the bass lines Jason played to it, and Alex killed it with his vocals on both of those releases.
Yeah,
and
totally.
The Venomous Concept split I liked a lot. I like the 3-1G record. Preservation's Crash probably. Die Already. We just the way things work out. It's always been easy for us just to bang out an EP or a split EP, basically. So
okay.
Maybe there might be at some point a full length. Who knows? But I want to say we have. We've recorded like maybe 42 or 44 songs. So that's, usually when we get back together, if it's been like a break, we all have to relearn stuff, which is a task within itself.
Right.
And then picking out like, all right, well, what like 15 or so songs do we want to play out of this? So,
Now, do you still have stuff like recorded that isn't even released?
The Decibel Flexi. There's 3 songs on that.
That's right. Okay. Dang, man, that's so awesome. I can't wait for that. That'll be sick. So, I mean, more recently now, kind of through the low tones of mentions, I've heard that there's a new band. What can you tell us about this?
So basically, I'm doing a new band that I'm singing and playing guitar in called Life Abuse. We all have it's all old friends. We all have a history of playing together. We've got Dan, Nate, and I played in Deathsquad together. Nate and I played in Devoid of Faith, By the Throat, and Deathsquad together. And Nate and Sean, the bass player, played in Permanent Trip together. So we've all either directly or indirectly played in various bands, and we just recorded 2 splits, 7-inches actually. One's coming out on a label in the UK, Crew Cuts, and it's that one was recorded. That's a split with Screwball, and that should be coming out this year. And then when we were like, we're going to record a split, we might as well record at least 1 extra song. Then we said, we might as well. Then it just the way it worked out, we recorded 2 split 7-inches. We're not 100% what one of them is going to be, but the other one is going to be with Screwball on Crew Cuts. So
dang. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, I mean, Dan and Nate are like, have been 2 of my closest friends for like a really, really long time. And you know, the chemistry with us. And I mean, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be playing with, you know, two really, really good drummers. And I mean, Dan and I, we, you know, we have a lot of the same tastes in music, you know, like, when we're playing, you know, he's just, we're on the same page, and we, you know, what his beats and everything, it's just really easy to play with. And we had, actually, I think it was a couple weeks ago, Dan and I realized I had sent him some stuff 3 years ago, because we had some unreleased Deathsquad stuff that I've been trying to see about getting everyone to get it, seeing if Nate and Dan would be on board with playing. But, you know, our whole thing is, you know, we always kind of like to go forward, and, you know, Nate correctly was like, you know, that stuff's that's in the past. But now moving forward with the new band, we're like, hey, you know what? Those songs were good. It works with what we're doing. Why not? You know, so it worked. Everything has worked out, you know, and it's a little tricky because there's two of the guys are in Albany. Nate lives in New Jersey, and, you know, obviously I'm in Richmond, but I mean, it's just, you know, again, it's some of the relearning some of the stuff. But I want to say it was July of 2020, I had started this band, Life Abuse. And it started out as like kind of a project, and it was with some guys from Revocation and Inner Arma. I'd written a slew of songs, but then everybody's band kind of got back to, oh, okay, you know what, we can record and put releases out. So this band kind of just got pushed off to the side. And then, you know, everyone else was kind of too busy really to do anything. So I had talked to Brett, the bass player from Revocation. He and I had kind of, you know, worked on stuff together. I'd come up with riffs. We'd mess around with the arrangements while we were traveling for work, which is actually where the name came from. We'd be working these crazy, like 11-hour days, driving off, doing all this, like working on the road, doing commercial work, like in the height of the pandemic, you know, after work, just pounding beers, just being in our hotel room. And then we were like, oh, you know what? This is like Life Abuse. This is like, so that's kind of like, that was kind of like where the name and everything sort of like evolved from. And then what it ended up happening is, you know, the chemistry and the history I have with these other guys, with, you know, Dan and Nate and Sean, you know, the songs, basically, if you listen to the stuff that was from 2020, it's like, by the time I'm sending these guys the riffs, and they're like, you know, we're changing everything around, you know, Sean and Nate have added parts, you know what I mean? So it's like,
it's a whole collective, it turned into.
It's actually become like, things worked out perfect, because it became like, what, if it hadn't evolved to what it is, it wouldn't be how things worked out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
totally.
I mean, honestly, like, you know, I've loved playing with Dan. I've been wanting to play with him for years, and everything just kind of clicked into place.
It's nice, you know, when you have, you know, kind of like you were mentioning, like the critical thought of like, oh man, you know, I kind of want to go back and maybe, you know, do something with Deathsquad stuff again, but then, you know, you're like, but I don't want to use this for like a new project, because it's like, but then from the outside, it's like, nobody knows, you know?
Yeah, true. But I mean,
but that's awesome.
Yeah. And the thing is it's like, you know, it's pretty true to how it was. You figure there's 3 of the 4 of us. So.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, I think it's something mentioned too, you know, I know that there are a lot of different bands that like to do, you know, like comebacks, or like, you know, a reunion tour, doing different things. And I can respect that. And I can also respect that, you know, there's certain bands that are like, you know what, we'll leave that where it was. You know, we can kind of take a little bit of a different approach. We've grown, we have different topics. It doesn't have to necessarily be the same band. So that's awesome. And I'm psyched. You had sent me one of the tracks, and I'm very ready for more of that. It's awesome, man, for sure.
I mean, so I'm singing and playing guitar on this one. Nate's playing lead guitar. I was a little apprehensive about like, do I want to sing again? And it just, everything just sort of fell into place, you know?
Okay.
And
Now, as far as like,
and I mean, most
go on.
importantly too, we had a lot of, you know, I could just hang out with those guys, and it's, you know, we have an awesome time together, and it's really fun. It's really fun to have the opportunity to be able to make music with them again.
I think that's the most important thing, is at the end of the day, you're having fun or having a good time with it. It doesn't become, you know, more another ingredient to that life abuse, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as lyrically, you know, do you find yourself, you know, with different topics from the last time, you know, that you're writing? Do you find yourself, you know, kind of frustrated in having to touch on some of the things that all these years, you know, prior, you know, you were touching on?
So here's the thing with lyrics. I've written some stuff. Dan has written some stuff, and then Nate has written some stuff.
Okay.
Everything Life Abuse is from our members, but basically everybody is input, you know, so it's more of, you know, musically, this Life Abuse is more of a collective, you know, and it's more representative of, like, you know, all of us as a whole versus just, you know, one guy writing, like, you know, personal lyrics that only apply to like them, and everyone else is just sort of playing along. Everyone is kind of contributing in, and it's like, you know, they have, we all have input with each other, and it's just, I feel like creatively, I feel like that's our strongest mode to be in, you know?
Yeah. Okay. You know, I think it adds, you know, something too. I mean, as far as like from my perspective, and, you know, and playing drums, and you know, the first record where I wrote a guitar riff, you know, and put like kind of a construct of a song together, and then all of a sudden, like, we were actually recording that. Like, I still go back and listen to that, you know, as far as like a band being more of a collective than just like one person contributing everything. So I mean, that adds a little bit more of a special touch to it for sure. You know, and it not being an ego thing of like, no, this is just my thing, and I don't like that. I always appreciate that.
Well, I mean, that's the important thing, is like not to be married to like, you know, no, this is it. It's got to be like this. This is it. And I mean, that works for some people, but you know, for us, we're all friends playing together, and we all want to feel like, you know, we all appreciate each other. We all value each other, and you know, we all want to feel like, you know, someone can contribute if they have an idea. I mean, and that's not to be said, one of us may be like, I mean, there've been times I've been like, oh, it should be like this. And they were all like, I don't think that works. Try it this way. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. So
yeah. It happens. That's part of it. You know, you have your family, and then you have a band, you know, that's equally just as much a family that'll drive you crazy in different ways than you ever thought your regular family would.
I always like to say playing in a band is like dating, but only usually, but without the good parts, without the benefits of dating, you know.
So you know, just for one last reiteration, as far as, do you know, as far as when this first release may be coming out for Life Abuse?
I know that so like I said, it's coming out on Crew Cuts. I know Screwballs, their stuff is ready to go. We're just waiting on we recorded the stuff at Dead Air in Massachusetts, in Worcester, Mass, with Will. I mean, Will is incredible. It was like such a pleasure. Excuse me. I had been recording like all the Under Attack stuff had pretty much been like, we would do like home studio kind of stuff and record at various spots, and to actually be back in a studio, and just the way he has everything set up, we could be in the same room playing together, and you know, we could do the two of the guitar tracks and the bass tracks and the drums, we could do all in one shot. So I feel like you have such more like momentum and energy when you're actually like playing versus, you know, tracking stuff. I get bored with tracking stuff. It's like, oh, I got to play this again, you know? So it's like so much better just to have that like energy to be looking at each other when you're playing, and you know.
So everything was done live?
Uh, Everything was done live, and then we went back and I did a second guitar track. Nate did a couple of guitar tracks, and then I did the vocals.
Sick.
But
That's awesome.
You know, it definitely, and I mean, considering like we had pretty much only been sending like riffs to each other, and then we had like 3 actual practices, and then we recorded. Like we did a Friday night practice, we practiced Saturday morning, Saturday night. And it just, just the chemistry is there, and it's, you know, now it's, what's good is, I mean, that we knew the first batch of stuff we did would be a little more rushed, but like what we're doing is like, and I think it's in about 2 weeks, I go back up, we'll practice Saturday night, then we'll do a Sunday morning practice, and then I'll drive back down here. We decided, since 2 of them are from up there, and Nate's on the way up there, it just makes sense to practice in the Albany area.
Okay.
And then since we're going to be recording in Western Mass, which is much closer to Albany than Richmond, so it just worked out. That's going to be like, you know, although we're based in 3 different states, that's going to be where we do like the practices and whatnot.
Jeez.
But
it's kind of wild just thinking of, like, I know that I've had different, you know, like projects or bands or things that I might travel like 45 minutes, but states I have not done.
Yeah, I mean, Nate did the Oath, where, you know, you had people from 2 different countries.
Right.
So, and then, you know, Limp Wrist, we had people in, again, it was someone in Pennsylvania. Originally, it was 2 people in Philadelphia, me in Albany, and then Martine in Chicago. And then that switched to Martine in LA, and 2 people in Albany and 1 person in Philadelphia. So we kind of bridge that gap. The thing is, you just have to have a plan, and like, you know, probably our first few shows we do are going to be up north, and we're probably a couple months out from doing some shows, but it'll
be sweet.
But I mean, you know, added to that, there's the more work of like doing like singing and playing is a little more work than just playing guitar. So Under Attack was easy because it's just, you know, we're all pretty much around here. We get together, practice what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
This, you know, there's just a couple little other layers, but, you know, the biggest thing is having the chemistry and, you know, feeling like, okay, this works. So,
that's awesome, man. I can't wait to hear more of it. And like, you know, I have to mention, thanks for sending, you know, a little the initial track there, because
no problem. I
sick,
figured
man.
that would be. I figured it would be good to. Then you could get your ears on it. You know, our plans are to record an LP in like August.
Oh, dang, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, we already have the material, so it's just.
Do you ever, I mean, do you ever do any work as far as somebody, you know, with how many projects and songs that you end up just spitting out? Does anybody approach you and like, hey, can you write me an LP? I just need, you know, this and this. And you seem to get some stuff out, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually, funny you should say that, because I'm doing another project where we're going to actually do an LP, and it's going to be, we're probably going to knock that out this summer. It's another guy I work with, this guy, Toby. He's a ripping drummer. He plays in Total and Skeletal Witch.
Oh, okay.
And then his brother is actually going to do vocals. His brother is the drummer in Rivers of Nile. And then the bass player is Jason from Under Attack and Suppression. So. That's going to be like just ripping fast stuff, you know, like you heard the Life Abuse stuff. It's not really, it's more like
like hardcore. I would say it rather than like a speed.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that's why, like, you know, and it's fun because playing with Dave's total, like, you know, Dave's like a hardcore, but also metal drummer. Dave plays a lot of metal stuff, which is really cool because, you know, I've never really played with someone in that style, but playing with Dan is awesome too, because Dan is like total, like, you know, total punk hardcore drum beats, you know, and it's like I said, he and I, you know, musically we're like totally on the same page.
Yeah.
And incidentally, he drums in male patterns, so it's kind of funny because the split, there's the male patterns under attack split.
What does that mean?
So we did the split 7-inch with male patterns.
Oh. Okay.
And,
I don't. For some reason, you said he drums in male patterns, and I'm like thinking of like a pattern. You know, I'm like, not the band. Okay. I got you now. I'm catching up.
So basically,
that?
you know,
Okay.
we had been like, I guess this is, so that came out maybe what, like 2 years ago, and we're like, yeah, I guess this is going to be the closest we come to playing together. And then, you know, here it is now, 2023, we're back playing together. So we're like, oh, that's so awesome. You know?
Dude, look, man, I'm so excited. I mean, obviously for all of the stuff, you know, and having the stamina all of these years for doing as much as you had, and then, you know, still being at it. I mean, it's certainly inspirational for any young cats that are out there, much less any cats, you know, that have been doing it for 20, you know, some plus years. I have to say this has been awesome as well, you know, taking the time to get to know you and get to, you know, hear your story and you taking the time, man. So I do have one last thing, but I want to say thank you very much. This is
no problem.
radical,
I really
dude.
appreciate you. I appreciate your interest in wanting to talk to me. So
Totally.
thank you.
Totally. Hopefully catching you at a show at some point. And, you know, the paths will have to cross, you know, at one point or another,
Hopefully.
whether I'm on the East Coast or so. But this finale here I wanted to come up with, and this is just a spit off the top of your head, the first thing that you can think of. I'd come up with something called Party at the Telfian. And what I wanted to do was, you're going to have some friends over, and you told everybody to bring over a record. And we're just going to give, you know, one record that's something, a personal favorite off the top of your head that you would be playing. What would you contribute to this this listening party?
Oh, that's a tough one. Only one record?
One record.
Okay. I'm going to have to go, and this is what, something that'll be representative of me.
You know, it could just be something that you love. Maybe it's, you look at your shelf and it's the first thing popping out. And you're like, you know, I love that record. That's great.
I'm going to have to, all right, you know what? I'm going to have to go because it's one of the best, I'm an avid runner. It's one of the best records to run to. Tragedy, Vengeance. That's what we're going to go with. So,
okay. Perfect. That's great.
Plus it's long too. So I think it's like a 45-minute long record or something. So
big boy. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think, you know, the fun part of this is just the first thing that might come to mind, and it not being like a prepared thing. So
yeah,
Mark, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Like I said, I appreciate you taking your time out with me as well.
Totally. This is great. I'll have everything edited within probably like the next month or so. I'll have it promoted on here for anybody that was, you know, tapping it a little bit late. So
awesome.
Thank you so much once again, man.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
You got it. Take care. Have a good day. Thanks, Eric.
It's so lo-fi, a whole guy, yeah. Lo-fi Horror Guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.